Hello, magical adventurers. Welcome to Fantasy Reimagined. Here fantasy stories come to life. Subscribe and hit the bell icon to join our enchanting journeys and never miss a new adventure. See you in the realms of wonder. The group of four, led by Vegeta, soon met up with Nappa. Nappa, look who's here. Latitz, why are you here? Nappa saw Vegeta coming back with 3 people. Besides Sun Tian and Bulma, who else is not Raditz? We came here as soon as we received your message. Fortunately, you and Vegeta are fine, Raditz replied. Vegeta told him what happened before and after. Nappa looked at Sun Tian in disbelief. Kakarot, thank you, then he said formally. 8 months later, in the Holy Land of Magic and Martial Arts, Sun Tian and his party finally reunited after nearly a year and a half. The operation to rescue Vegeta and the others has come to an end. The core members of the Magic and Martial Arts Holy Land gathered together again to discuss future plans. According to the current development of the Earth, they will go out sooner or later and cannot stay on Earth forever. And according to Vegeta, the disappearance of Champo and Dodoria will definitely attract the attention of the top leaders of the Frieza group. After all, there will not be too many warriors with a combat power of more than 20,000, even under Frieza. Vegeta, you have been fighting in the universe for many years. Do you know the distribution of forces in the universe? Sun Tian asked. Although I have been fighting outside for many years, I was basically in the area controlled by Frieza. So I am not very clear about the forces in the universe, Vegeta replied. After all, compared with the entire universe, Vegeta's strength is still too weak. He was just a small figure with less than 20,000 combat power before. Therefore, for Vegeta, it is really unclear what powerful forces there are in the universe. Even Frieza, who is known as the Emperor of the Universe, is only active in the southern region of the Northern Galaxy. Compared with the entire universe, Frieza is just a relatively powerful force. Sun Tian still remembers that in Dragon Ball, not to mention the entire universe, even in the Milky Way. There are several forces that are not weaker than Frieza. One is Slag, who calls himself the Demon Clan like Piccolo, another is Kavira, who is Frieza's brother, and there is another who calls himself the King of the Galaxy. They are orthodox and their forces must not be underestimated, otherwise with Frieza's character, it is impossible for him not to launch an offensive against them. And this is only within the Milky Way galaxy. How many galaxies are there in the universe, and how strong other galaxies are simply unknown. At least the Demon King Dapura, who appeared later, is definitely not from the Milky Way. In a sense, Sun Tian and others are really not good enough in the universe. The strongest combat power Sun Tian is only about 12W now, followed by Vegeta's 3W plus combat power, and Raditz peak is about 8,000. Although Nappa is stronger by 1W plus, it can't play any role at all. After all, the population of the Earth is limited. The strong people that can be produced are affected by their bloodline. For example, people like Tien Shinhan can reach a combat power of tens of millions in the later period. This is already the limit. This is still a group of people with excellent talents. For ordinary Earthlings, even if they are trained by the Magic Martial Holy Land, the combat power of tens of thousands is basically the upper limit. Bulma, how many spaceships do we have now? Sun Tian turned around and asked. 9 ships, 3 of which were built when you, Raditz Peak, and the other 2 came to Earth. Later on, after exhausting all the resources on Earth, we were able to build only 6 ships. Apart from that, energy is also a big problem. Although Bulma is actually the Lord of the Magic and Martial Holy Land, Sun Tian is still the backbone of the group. It's just that Sun Tian is busy practicing, so it's basically Bulma who makes all the arrangements. Well, if the Earth wants to go out, technology still has to keep up. So, organize personnel, prepare to start space exploration, and try to contact aliens first. Issue tasks and recruit those with a combat power of more than 300 to escort this operation, Sun Tian said. Pico, I may have to trouble you to stay with us this time. Vegeta and I should not show up for the time being, so as not to be discovered by Frieza's strength. This time we are exploring various energy planets on the one hand, and on the other hand, we are also laying the groundwork for future development. That's no problem. It's just a good opportunity to test the results of my recent training, Piccolo replied. Krillin, Yamcha, Tien Shinhan, if you are interested you can follow us. You don't have to stay on Earth all the time. Going out more often will be good for your practice. I'll leave the matters of the Holy Land to Master Wu Tian and Master He Xianren. Next, prepare to have a good retreat. Sun Tian simply arranged the tasks for everyone. Days later, led by Piccolo, Krillin, Le Ping and others, the first group of explorers on Earth finally opened a new chapter for the Earth. As for Sun Tian, he was preparing for a long period of retreat and practice in order to open up all the acupoints in his body in one fell swoop and break through the ancient 8 magic art to the 4th level of magical power. After nearly 30 years of fighting, Vegeta and Nappa are ready to sort out and summarize and start a new training. Latitz took Chichen and Lashat, Latitz's son who is already 3 years old, to take care of the children. Under Bulma's care, the Magic and Martial Arts Holy Land is developing steadily. 2 months later, Piccolo and his team finally discovered a planet with life. According to the detection, the planet is very suitable for survival. The strongest force value is nearly 500. Moreover, judging from the situation in outer space, the planet has not yet developed a space civilization. Master, look, what's in the sky? In a palace somewhere, a strange-looking human with 3 legs and covered with scales was pointing at the sky. The meteorite that fell from the sky must be a peerless tool for making divine weapons, said another person who looked like a master. At the same time, the top masters on the continent have discovered it. At once, dozens of figures flew towards the place where the meteorite fell. The Shenwu continent believes that the strong are respected. If the strong on the continent go there, the Shenwu masters can fly in the air and destroy mountains and cities with a wave of their hands. At this time, the place where the meteorite fell from the sky has gathered nearly half of the Shenwu masters on the entire continent, waiting for it to land and scramble for it. Look, it doesn't look like a meteorite, said a man. But what is this thing? Another person asked in confusion. We've landed. Be careful, Taija. After 2 months of spaceflight and continuous exploration, Piccolo and his team finally landed successfully on this life planet. Everyone in the spaceship was very excited. We detected that the air outside is normal and suitable for survival. More than 300 creatures detected around. Please pay attention. The hatch is about to open. Please get ready. Non-combat personnel, stay where you are. Magic and Military Team 1 guard the spacecraft, Piccolo ordered. For this trip, the Magic Martial Arts Holy Land has recruited 400 accomplished members divided into 4 teams. The team leaders are all strong men with a combat power of more than 400, not combatants, and are carefully selected top talents in various fields. Following the order of the Great Demon King, the Magic Martial Arts Team 1, led by Captain Craig, quickly left the spaceship and dispersed around. At the place where the spacecraft landed, the fastest Shenwu has arrived. Looking at Craig and others who walked out of the meteorite. Who are you? Are you evil demons from outer space? Samaresh, as the top warrior on the scene, stepped forward and asked on behalf of the crowd. Craig looked at the other party's frightened expression, but due to the language barrier, he couldn't communicate at all. His mission was to guard the spaceship to prevent it from being destroyed. Be alert, kill anyone who moves recklessly, Craig quickly ordered. 100 people quickly locked onto a group of Shenwu. Although they couldn't understand what the other side said, they could feel that the strength of this group of Shenwu was not weak. In addition, the humans on the Shenwu continent looked really weird, which made everyone have to be careful. Samaresh saw these people guarding all around, and each of them could fly in the air. Obviously, they were at least Shenwu-level strongmen. But as the top strongmen on the Shenwu continent, they would naturally not retreat. But because the number of the other side was not small, the personnel on his side had not gathered due to distribution, and for a while both sides protected each other. As time went by, the Shenwu continent had gathered about 200 people. This force could destroy any empire on the Shenwu continent. Samaresh, who is the other party? What should we do now? Asked another person on the continent, who was almost as powerful as Samaresh. Walter, I don't know, but they are not kind, and everyone on the other side can fly, which means they have at least the strength of Shenwu, Samaresh said with a sullen look on his face. Piccolo finally finished explaining everything and walked out with Krillin and others. Although he didn't hear what happened outside just now, he had already known it through his chi sense. Although there are people with a combat power of over 400 among the newcomers, Piccolo believes that Craig and others can protect them. Moreover, with this little strength, it is not a threat to Piccolo and his men. Even if the opponent suddenly launches an attack, Piccolo's strength can improve and resolve it. Piccolo's appearance made Samaresh more certain of one thing, that this group of people are definitely evil demons from outer space. Piccolo doesn't look like a good person at first glance, with a demonic aura rising to the sky, although Piccolo has tried his best to restrain his breath. In the Shenwu continent, Piccolo and his party were not the first aliens to descend. The last time was about 800 years ago, when Samaresh was still a rookie who had just joined the Shenwu. The group of people who descended at that time brutally killed the continent as soon as they appeared. Fortunately, although there were strong people in that group, the strongest one had just reached the peak of Shenwu. In the end, the Shenwu lost nearly half of their peak combat power before they killed all the evil demons from outer space. And today the evil demons from outer space have descended again, which reminds the Shenwu of the history of more than 800 years ago. Go back, you demons. Although he couldn't understand what the other party said from the other party's expression, Piccolo knew that the other party definitely didn't say anything good. For the great devil Piccolo, things that can be solved with fists will never be solved with words, especially when the other party has no strength and dares to pretend in front of the great devil. With a few Qigong bullets, the fierce and angry Shenwu just now turned into nothingness. The air suddenly became quiet. Not only the members of the Mou team, but also the top Shenwu of the Shenwu continent were quiet. About 5 minutes later, Piccolo slowly walked forward, looking down at the group of gods and warriors. From now on, this planet will be occupied by our magic Holy Land. You can resist, but the result of resistance is death. Regardless of whether the other party could understand him or not, Piccolo still spoke domineeringly. Magic and Martial Arts Team 1, start training. From now on it will not be like before on Earth. Remember, there is only one law for survival in the universe, the law of the jungle. Then Piccolo said to Craig. Yes sir, Craig and his team have long wanted to see how strong the alien race is. They are rubbing their fists together. When they were on Earth they always felt restrained, but now it is different. They are no longer facing their own kind. Powerful auras emanated from everyone, letting all the Shenwu continent's Shenwu warriors know that history was about to repeat itself. Piccolo Tianxinhan and other high-level officials did not intend to participate in the war. The combat power of this planet was just suitable for the members of the magic and martial arts, and it could serve as a training ground. You know, there is no fairness in the universe. If you want fairness, you must have absolute strength. When a high-level civilization faces a low-level civilization, it is often a bloody history. As the two sides fought, disaster struck the Shenwu continent again. Craig took the lead and directly chose Walter, who had the strongest aura on the other side. This was a life-and-death battle. Although they had fought more than once on Earth, the only ones who could fight them on Earth were either senior brothers or junior brothers, and it was impossible for them to exert their true strength. But this time was different. This was an invasion and struggle. If they were careless, they would face death. As soon as the battle started, the magic martial arts team was at a disadvantage. After all, the martial arts of Earth have only slowly developed in the last 10 years, and there is insufficient practical experience. Fortunately, the teaching of the magic martial arts Holy Land has enabled everyone to have martial arts far beyond the Shenwu continent. Looking at the battle in front of him, Piccolo felt that the magic martial arts Holy Land was too stable before. Although the strength was almost the same, it was at a disadvantage. It seems like we have to train these devil cubs well this time. Otherwise, when we confront other advanced civilizations in the future, it will be one-sided. Because high-level fighters such as Piccolo did not participate in the battle, the magic and martial arts team was suppressed for a while, and gradually more and more people were injured, and some even almost lost their lives. Facing Piccolo, the Shenwu continent's Shenwu warriors didn't feel it, but when facing this group of people, they found that they were not without a chance. They saw hope, but they didn't know that all this was an illusion. Thinking of historical records, the group of alien demons 800 years ago were not like the current group of people. They started slaughtering after they came. At the beginning, they were in an absolute disadvantage. It was only later that the strong men of the continent gathered together and eliminated the opponent step by step. Craig saw that his side was suddenly in a state of decline, so he had to force his opponent away with one move. The adults are watching. What are you afraid of? Or are you only good at showing off on Earth? Craig shouted. Impossible. We are the elites of the Magic Martial Holy Land, a member said. For a moment, the members of the Magic Martial Team 1 felt embarrassed. They knew that the opponent was not much different from themselves, but they behaved so badly in front of the top leaders like Piccolo. A wave of anger broke out in their hearts. On the battlefield, Craig was able to become the captain, so his strength was naturally good. In order to save the situation, Craig burst out with a strong breath, directly forcing the enemy dozens of meters away. Craig crossed his hands and raised them above his head. A strong wave formed between his hands. Piccolo's unique skill, Magic Flash. This was Craig's reward from the Magic and Martial Arts tournament a year ago. After nearly a year of practice, he has already mastered it to about 70%. Die, monster! Magic Flash! A flash of light passed by, and Walter was locked by Craig's aura. He couldn't escape at all, so he could only resist, but as Piccolo's unique skill, how could it be easily dealt with? Walter was directly knocked back hundreds of meters, and a large pit dozens of meters deep appeared on the ground. Walter, what happened to you? Samaresh got rid of his opponent and quickly flew to the deep pit. Let's retreat, everyone. Organize the strong on the continent, the strong, the evil outside the sky, the evil demon. Walter just said the word demon, and before he could say the next sentence, he lost his life. Craig's counterattack greatly increased the confidence of the magic and martial arts team, and for a while they actually forced the group of gods and warriors to retreat step by step. The two sides fought for nearly half an hour. After leaving behind nearly 60 bodies, the Shenwu continent had to find an opportunity to flee the scene. The magic martial team also paid a heavy price. More than 40 of the 100-man team were seriously injured. If it weren't for Krillin and others who came to the rescue, they would probably have been left in a foreign land forever. Piccolo and the others did not pursue them. The main purpose at the moment was not to slaughter these natives, but to establish a base on this planet and dig out useful value. The wounded of the magic martial team were taken back to the sanatorium for treatment. After this battle, the personnel of the team had obvious changes. Piccolo quickly arranged the personnel and began to build a base with the spacecraft as the core. After making the arrangements, Piccolo asked Klin and others to stay behind to prevent stronger people from attacking, and entered the Shenwu continent alone. 10 days later, a brand new base was completed. Piccolo also discovered the situation of this planet from the mainland, a world where technology has not been developed and dynasties are fighting for hegemony. The humans on this continent don't even know the concept of a planet and regard Piccolo and others as evil demons from outer space. Although the planet's military power is decent, it's really nothing for Piccolo, but it's still a good planet for the members of the Magic Martial Holy Land to test. In general, the top combat power of this planet is equivalent to the peak of myths on Earth in the past, which is just right for the current Magic Martial Holy Land. With the construction of the base, relevant information was quickly reported to Earth. Bulma and others immediately held a meeting. Of course, Sun Tian and others were in seclusion, so these things could be left to Bulma. A few days later, a piece of news spread on Earth that a planet named Shenwu was discovered. The Magic Martial Holy Land issued a mission that members with a combat power of 80% or more could sign up to go on an expedition to Shenwu. Almost at the same time, the martial arts world on Earth went crazy. Although they have always known that aliens exist, this time they really appeared in front of the majority of martial arts people. 10 days later, the spaceship named Magic Martial No. 2, under the command of Tian Xinhan and Jiaozi, officially set off from the Magic Martial Holy Land. On the Shenwu star, the arrival of the evil demon from outer space forced all the Shenwu to put aside their past grudges and unite all the martial arts masters on the continent to form an alliance called Zhuxi. Through this period of exploration, Piccolo and his party finally mastered the language of this planet, so that when the two sides meet, they don't have to know what the other party is saying. At the magic and martial arts base on Shenwu Star, 4 teams of personnel took turns to guard, and the rest of the personnel began to explore in groups of 3 or 5. For a time, the peaks of Shenwu continent were full of smoke. Piccolo and other high-end combat forces sat in the base and began to practice. Several times the Zhuxi alliance came to offend, but they were all sent away by Leping. However, in order to allow the members of the Magic and Martial Arts Holy Land to have a trial object, they did not kill the offenders. However, from then on, the evil slaying alliance no longer dared to come to the base, and could only wage a sustained battle outside with the members of the demonic Martial Holy Land who were out for training. 2 months later, the Mowu-2 spacecraft landed on Shenwu Star, and Tian Xinhan Dumpling led various talents and nearly 5,000 strong men to arrive. With the arrival of various talents, the lack of low-end combat power was finally made up. In addition to the necessary security personnel, Piccolo divided everyone into 100 groups, each led by a person with a combat power of 300 plus, a total of 50 people, and began a comprehensive suppression of Shenwu planet. 2 years later, the high-end combat power of Shenwu continent was completely wiped out, and the more than 5,400 warriors of the Magic Martial Holy Land also lost nearly 2,000 people. After nearly 2.5 years of war, the strength of all the survivors has been significantly improved. Looking at the nearly 3,500 warriors in front of them, a murderous aura came over them, and even Krillin and others were moved. The strongest combat power was as high as 1,000, and the lowest reached more than 300. Nearly 500 strong men were left to guard the planet. Piccolo and others started the Earth movement. In the following time, humans from Earth continued to enter Shenwu Star through the spacecraft of the Magic Martial Holy Land. In the next 100 years, it will slowly evolve into the second ancestral star of the Earth. Let's not talk about it for now. If you like my work, please support it. If there is anything wrong with it, you can comment. Piccolo and his companions set out on their journey again. Through the events of the Divine Martial Star, the members of the Magic Martial Holy Land also realized the cruelty of the Cosmic War. It has been 5 years since Piccolo and others left Earth. In the past 5 years, the Earth Magic Martial Holy Land has continuously cultivated talents and sent them to Shenwu Star and the planets they occupied later. On Earth, Sun Tian is still in seclusion, while Vegeta, Raditz and others have already come out of seclusion. After 5 years of training, Vegeta's current combat power has exceeded 10 W. Even Raditz and Nappa have reached more than 3 W. Chi Tian, who is already 9 years old, has surpassed his teacher Raditz in combat power. With a combat power of 5 W+, it can be said that on Earth today, except for Sun Tian and Vegeta, he is the strongest. Bulma finally succeeded in taking down the arrogant Prince Vegeta 3 years ago. Now Trunks is 2 years old. Trunks, who has shown super talent since childhood, has begun to be led by Vegeta to practice together. In 5 years, the scientific team of the Magic Martial Holy Land has become stronger and stronger. With the addition of Brief and others, Bulma refers to Sun Tian's ideas and further expands the application of space technology. After 5 years of research and development, the space teleportation technology has been successful and has begun to be tested on Earth. Once the experiment is successful, the technology on Earth will usher in another explosion. The development of Shenwu Star has brought many rare resources to the Earth, one of which is named Space Crystal. Because of the discovery of Space Crystal, Brief and others have been researching for nearly years, and the Brief family itself is an expert in the field of space. Finally, a space gate that can teleport across space has been developed. At this time in the square of Mowu Shengwu, a magnificent gate was flashing with colorful light, and a group of scientific researchers were doing the final debugging. At this time in a city thousands of miles away, there is also a similar gate. Spatial frequency synchronization successful. Test preparation begins, a researcher said. Received, a researcher thousands of miles away replied. Dead object transmission preparation begins. I saw a staff member holding a special object in his hand and putting it into the space door. The space door emitted a halo of light, and the object disappeared into the door. About 20 seconds later, I received a reply from another place. Transmission item received. Pa pa pa. There was a burst of applause, and the joy of the successful experiment appeared on everyone's face. Quiet. Now we will conduct the live animal test. A staff member put a little white rabbit that he had prepared in advance into the space gate. With a flash of light, the little white rabbit disappeared out of thin air. On the other side, the body of a little white rabbit that had died with blood gushing out of all its orifices appeared in the space gate. There was an uproar at the scene. Although it was successfully teleported, it was not considered a success. The teleportation of living things failed. What's going on? Can only dead things be teleported? That shouldn't be the case. According to our calculations, living things can be teleported. Could it be that they can't withstand the pressure of space during the teleportation process? It's possible. Find a stronger living creature. Not long after, a monster with a combat power of about was caught by the magic martial Holy Land, knocked unconscious and put into the teleportation gate. Soon, the other side fed back data. Although the creature's internal organs were damaged, it was not dead. It seems that our calculations are correct. During the transmission process of the space gate, the living things being transmitted will be affected by the space pressure. If they are not strong enough, they may die directly during the transmission process. A monster with a combat power close to 80 will also have its internal organs damaged. It is recommended that you use someone with a combat power of at least. Is there anyone who would like to volunteer? The scene was quiet. Not everyone wants to be a guinea pig. If they accidentally die during the transmission, it will be a disaster. Let me do it. Suddenly a little kid rushed in with purple hair. It was not Trunks. Who else could it be? Trunks, stop messing around. Bulma stopped him immediately after seeing him. No, I have a combat power of over 800 now. No problem, Mom, the little brat said seriously. 2-year-old Trunks actually has a combat power of over 800. This talent is really extraordinary. After saying that, he didn't care and stood directly in the space gate. A halo flashed and little Trunk had disappeared in front of everyone. After a while, the sound of success was heard. Wow, Mom, I suddenly appeared thousands of miles away. It's amazing, Trunks' voice came. Okay, come back quickly. After a while, the space gate flashed and Trunks' small figure appeared again. Pa pa pa, a burst of warm applause rang out. After several more tests, it was finally confirmed. As long as the combat power is over 100, there will be no problem, and it can directly withstand the pressure of space. If the body is strong enough, there will be no problem, but the combat power must be over 50. Today, not only the military force of the Earth is developing rapidly, but also the technology. 10 years have passed in a flash, and slowly, with the Earth as the center, the magic martial arts Holy Land has gradually gained a corresponding reputation in the northern Milky Way. Of course, it has also attracted the attention of various forces. After 10 years of seclusion, Sun Tian finally succeeded in breaking through the Tongxiao realm and cultivated the Taigu Yuan magic art to the Shentong realm. His combat power was suddenly increased madly. With a combat power of 1,500 W, Sun Tian is considered a master in the universe. In the past 10 years, Piccolo and others have returned to Earth. Today's Earth and space development no longer need Piccolo and other big guys to guard it. The newly grown masters are enough to protect Zhanling's planet. The combat power of the earliest batch of members of the Magic Martial Holy Land has reached over 10,000, and Sun Tian and others have made even more significant improvements. His 10-year retreat. This was probably the first time since Sun Tian was reborn. Sun Tian, who was almost 35 years old, still looked like he did when he was 18. Saiyans are a peculiar race that has remained young for most of their lives. Like Raditz, Vegeta, and Nappa, the years have not left any traces on them. Instead, the experience of growing up has added more charm to them. Hey, I don't know how Chiki is doing. She has been in retreat for years. She won't be angry with me, will she? Sun Tian thought of this and felt that he owed Chiki a lot. After Sun Tian came out of retreat, he went straight home. Without the financial burden, Chiki today is completely different from the Chiki in his memory of his previous life. Chiki, I'm back. Even though Sun Tian already had a combat power of 15 million, he felt a little embarrassed at this time. He had been in retreat for 10 years, and his wife and son didn't care. Sometimes he thought that he was not a good husband and father. Suddenly, a beautiful figure rushed out, threw herself on Sun Tian and hugged him tightly. Husband, I thought you didn't want me anymore. This seclusion has been for 10 years, buzz buzz buzz. A slightly crying voice came from himself, making Sun Tian feel heartbroken for a while. He held the beauty tightly in his arms with both hands and gently stroked her hair. No, just this time I won't do it again. Chiki, you've worked hard. Where's kitchen? Sun Tian comforted her and asked for. A long time before Chiki's emotions stabilized and she pulled Sun Tian into the house. Kitchen, he should be with Vegeta. You don't know, our Kitchen is very powerful now. Even his two masters put together are not his match. Only Vegeta can defeat him. When Chi-Chi mentioned Chi-Tian, her face was full of pride and a maternal glow emanated from her. Yes, Sun Tian is in seclusion, and Chi-Chi is not like Bulma who focuses on the management of the Holy Land. Apart from practicing, she also pays attention to Chi-Tian. If it weren't for Chi-Tian's company, I really don't know what would have happened in the past 10 years. And as Sun Tian and others became stronger, she was afraid that she would lose her husband and son one day. Therefore she practiced very seriously. Now Chi-Chi is also a master in the Holy Land, with a combat power of nearly 30,000. I'm afraid that except for those battle maniacs, ordinary people are really not her opponents. It's just that she doesn't like to show off outside. By the way, one day after you went into seclusion, Vegeta and Bulma got married. Just as you said, I didn't expect that the arrogant Bulma would be conquered one day. It's really surprising. Chi-Chi and Sun Tian reunited after a long time and talked about some things in the past 10 years. Although Chi-Chi doesn't manage the affairs of the Holy Land much, she still knows some important things. And these are exactly what Sun Tian lacked in his 10 years of seclusion. Oh, I didn't expect that our Holy Land has developed to this point. I am really incompetent as the founder. Sun Tian listened to Chi-Chi talking about some things. Yes, speaking of which, the eldest brother's family already has 3 children. Every time Chi-Tian looks at them with jealousy, aren't you and us? At this point, Chi-Chi looked at Sun Tian with a dazed look. Ah, I didn't expect that. What did you say? Sun Tian looked at Chi-Chi's appearance. Although he didn't care much about some things, he couldn't help but feel a little moved. He glanced at the sky outside and saw that it was still early. Chi-Tian would definitely not be back for a while. He pulled Chi-Chi into the room with a bad look on his face. Chi-Chi, who had achieved success in cultivation, did not grow old with age. Instead, she looked like an 18-year-old beautiful girl. Touching the other's fair skin, Sun Tian felt that he was really sorry for the beauty over the years. I don't know how long it took, but Sun Tian compensated Chi-Chi well, calculating the time Chi-Tian should be back too. Among the remaining Saiyans, Sun Tian got married the earliest, but because of his cultivation, he has only one son, Chi-Tian. His eldest brother Latitz got married several years later than him, and now he has 3 children. I don't know why, but I heard that purebred Saiyans generally had difficulty conceiving before. A couple usually had at most 2 children. Otherwise, Saiyans would not be called a minority in the universe. Fertility difficulties accounted for a large part of the reason. And Latitz, who married an Earthling, already had 3 children in 10 years. Even Vegeta and Nappa later had 3 children each. Maybe it won't be long before the blood of the Saiyans will really develop on Earth. Around 8 or 9 in the evening, Chi-Tian walked home in a sweaty state. From a distance he could feel 2 strong auras in his home, one from his mother, and the other was somewhat familiar. Mom, I'm back. Are there any guests at home? Chi-Tian's voice came from afar. Smelly boy, what are you yelling about? Go wash up, we had a reunion dinner today. Chi-Chi listened, thought of the previous madness, and quickly changed the subject. Kishin, you've grown up so much. Sun Tian had already gone out to pick him up when Chi-Tian was about to get home. He hadn't seen his son for 10 years, and Sun Tian still missed him very much. Hey, you are the father, are you out of seclusion? Although Chi-Tian hadn't seen Sun Tian for 10 years, he still recognized him at a glance. Yes, if you don't come out now, our little Chi-Tian will get married. Come here, let me see. Sun Tian held Chi-Tian's hand with a loving face. No way, I'm still young. Cultivation is more important. Father, have you made a breakthrough? Chi-Tian looked at his father and always felt that Sun Tian was a little ordinary, but he was much more restrained than Uncle Vegeta. Haha, let's eat first, your mother is already waiting for us. Okay, let's eat first and talk later. Looking at Chi-Tian in front of me, and thinking about how I looked when I was 14 years old, time really does not bother us. But the 14-year-old Chi-Tian is much stronger than he was back then. Sun Tian and his family had dinner. After 10 years of seclusion, it was the first time for him to have a family dinner with his wife. At this time, Sun Tian also felt a rare sense of relaxation. After asking about Chi-Tian's cultivation, Sun Tian did not expect that Chi-Tian, who was only 14 years old, had already cultivated the ancient ape magic art to the Tongchao realm. With a combat power of nearly 280,000, Sun Tian was also shocked. The ancient ape demonic art is a martial art given by the Chinese dragon ancestor, so it is naturally extraordinary. Chi-Tian, as the son of Sun Tian, naturally possesses the blood of the ancient giant ape and can practice it. However, Sun Tian only taught this technique to Chi-Tian and told him not to pass it on to others, not even to Latitz and others. Sun Tian still understood the principle of innocence. To be honest, the current combat power of Sun Tian and others is much worse than that in the previous life. I remember that in the previous life Sun Wukong and others were almost fighting Boo. I don't know if it was because of Sun Tian's rebirth that a butterfly effect occurred. However, who can tell whether it is good or bad? Although Sun Tian now only has 1,500 W combat strength, If he really fights, even the perfect Frieza may not be his opponent. Sun Tian, who has practiced the ancient ape magic art, is completely a humanoid weapon. Now that he has broken through to the divine power realm, he has achieved a qualitative sublimation. The practice of the ancient ape magic art is just laying the foundation before the divine power realm, and once you break through to the divine power realm, all kinds of magical powers will appear, which is no longer the same. If the first 3 levels are still human, once breaking through to the realm of supernatural powers, the level of life has changed. If we have to make a metaphor, it is probably like the gods and kings of the earth today, the difference in life forms, the change of dimensions. In the past, Sun Tian relied entirely on Qi to sense the outside world. Once the other party restrained their Qi or their Qi was too weak, he would have no way of being sure. But after breaking through to the realm of magical powers, he no longer relied solely on Qi to see the world. With divine consciousness in a single thought, the entire demonic martial Holy Land appeared in Sun Tian's mind. Even if it was an ant, Sun Tian could sense it clearly as long as he wanted to. Compared with using Qi to sense, divine consciousness can more clearly see everything happening around. If Qi can only be used to sense living things, then under the coverage of divine consciousness, no matter dead or alive, everything can be detected. With Sun Tian's current divine consciousness, it can only barely cover the entire planet. But it has become very strong. At the same time, Sun Tian also awakened several magical powers, including the space magical power that Sun Tian wanted the most. The magical powers awakened by Sun Tian include teleportation, space exile, fighting field, blood rage. Teleport, where the divine thought reaches, in a thought, travel through space and arrive in an instant. Space exile, with the strongest strength, directly exile the enemy to the space turbulence, making it lost in the endless space. Fighting field, once the magic power is released, a field of self-amplification is formed. In the field, one's own strength can be better exerted, while the enemy will be oppressed by the field and the strength will be suppressed. Unless the strength is far beyond Sun Tian's own, it cannot escape. His blood is raging. With the breakthrough to the realm of supernatural powers, Sun Tian's blood, true energy and acupoints have been further improved. With the help of the increase in his own raging blood, Sun Tian can currently burst out a maximum of 20 times the increase, which means a combat power of 300 million. As his cultivation level increases, this upper limit will also increase. In addition, after reaching the realm of magical powers, Sun Tian also opened up a world within his body. Although now the inner world is still very small, with a radius of only 5,000 meters, but with the growth of his cultivation, the inner world will become larger and larger, and by then not only can it store dead things, but even living things can live in it. The next day, Sun Tian got up early and stretched. Looking at Chiki, who was still sleeping beside him, Sun Tian did not wake her up and strolled alone in the holy land of magic and martial arts. Today's magic martial Holy Land has the best resources on Earth, naturally attracting most of the world's geniuses. With the development of the magic martial Holy Land, the current Earth government has long been a thing of the past, and almost all related institutions have been incorporated into the management of the magic martial Holy Land. In 10 years, the magic martial Holy Land has been constantly exploring planets and then feeding back the resources of various resource planets to the Earth, forming a cycle. Especially 2 years ago, the successful experiment of interstellar teleportation made it possible for the interstellar teleportation function to be directly opened even without spacecraft, as long as the planets have been explored by the magic martial Holy Land, which has accelerated the development of the magic martial Holy Land. In 10 years, the magic martial Holy Land directly controls as many as 50 planets, with these planets providing resources for the magic martial Holy Land. The development of the magic martial Holy Land in recent years has been turned upside down. Mainly with Piccolo, Krillin, Leping, Tien Shinhan and others, they are always expanding their territory, and the magic martial Holy Land has sent strong men to guard every planet occupied or conquered. Those with a combat power of more than 8,000 can serve as the supreme governor of a planet, which also makes the strong people more enthusiastic about cultivation. However, with 10 years of fighting, it is inevitable to encounter some difficult matters, such as when conquering a pure resource planet, they actually encountered other forces. If it weren't for Piccolo, a great god with a combat power of more than 1 million, they would have been directly wiped out by that force. The wars in the universe are so bloody, plundering and killing are common, there is no distinction between justice and evil, although the magic martial Holy Land will generally absorb the conquered foreign planets, but some planets resist fiercely. Although Vegeta and others sometimes go out to fight, they are relatively secretive, especially when they know Frieza's combat power, they have to hide first. But with the martial arts theory of the magic martial Holy Land system, plus the powerful resources of the magic martial Holy Land, the rapid progress of the group is really unbelievable. Today's Vegeta can be said to be the well-deserved #1 master of the magic martial Holy Land, with a combat power of 500W, but for some reason Vegeta has not been able to transform into a Super Saiyan until now. It stands to reason that 100W can meet the basic conditions for transformation, and because of their insufficient qualifications, Nappa and Latitz barely reached a combat power of 200,000. If there is no opportunity, I am afraid that their combat power will be the limit of their lifetime. In the center of the galaxy on a very large planet, the king of the galaxy is listening to reports from his subordinates. Your Majesty, Frieza's power has become more and more rampant recently. In the past few years, several high-level planets have been destroyed, and many planets with life have been completely destroyed, a strange-looking alien reported. There is nothing we can do about Frieza's demonic power. Ever since Claude stepped down, Frieza has become more powerful than his father. Although we are the Orthodox Galaxy recognized by King Kai himself, with our current strength we can't deal with this demon at all, the King of the Galaxy said helplessly. The King of the Galaxy has a crown on his head, and 7 or 8 octopus tentacles supporting his body. 2 tentacles are like hands, which looks very comical, but he has a kingly demeanor that is awe-inspiring without anger. The King of the Galaxy is also a strong man in the entire galaxy. He has a very long life and is an Orthodox galactic force recognized by the 4 kings of the galaxy. His subordinates, the Galactic Patrol, are mainly responsible for patrolling the entire galaxy, arresting some criminals who undermine the stability of the galaxy, and at the same time monitoring the major unstable forces in the galaxy. But hundreds of years ago, the Frozen Clan came out of the ice, and the orthodox status of the King of the Galaxy began to be suppressed. Later, Slagu, Pierrot, and other forces appeared. Although these forces did not do anything to the King of the Galaxy because of the interference of the underworld forces of King Kai, the influence of the underworld forces on the world of the living is limited after all, resulting in the rule of the King of the Galaxy being somewhat in name only so far, and the work of the Galactic Patrol is also difficult to carry out. Faced with these forces on the one side of the pattern, the Galactic Patrol also turned a blind eye and could only try to manage the areas outside these forces. However, as an intelligent race, although Frieza and his ilk continue to seize planets and expand their power, they are not completely like Majin Buu, who destroys everything he sees if he is unhappy with it. Have you found out what the reason is? The King of the Galaxy asked. It seems that they are looking for something. I heard that Chambo and Dodoria, the popular people around Frieza, were killed 10 years ago, and it has not been found out who killed them yet, the people below reported back. Oh, although those two are not very powerful, they seem to be quite favored by Frieza, but not to the point of death. The King of the Galaxy knew that these two people were just Frieza's facade after all, and it would not be necessary to make a big fuss over it. According to the information we have received, there is another thing. It seems that the Saiyan Prince Vegeta, who was exterminated by Frieza that year, may have faked his death. It was Vegeta who killed Chambo and Dodoria. Those Saiyans, they don't have much fighting power, but they love to cause chaos everywhere. It would be better if their entire race was exterminated. The King of Galaxy had no good impression of the Saiyans when he heard about them. By the way, didn't Jack track down a Saiyan baby who was sent out more than 30 years ago? How did that mission go? Speaking of Saiyans, the King of Galaxy thought of the fact that after the destruction of the Saiyan planet, many Saiyan babies were sent out to various parts of the galaxy. I don't know. It is said that Jake was not found and the matter was later dropped. Forget it, sending a little ghost to a low-level planet shouldn't be a problem. It turns out that when the Saiyan ancestral planet was destroyed, the Saiyans knew that they could no longer resist, so they sent out some of their infant children. Although most of them were intercepted by Frieza, a few still managed to escape. However, they were tracked down by the Galactic Patrol. Although there may still be some fish that slipped through the net, most of them were killed by the Galactic Patrol. However, Jack and his gang were born with a few brains. When they arrived on Earth, first the spaceship had problems, and then because Sun Tien had hidden the spaceship in advance and was adopted by Son Gohan, and Son Gohan had a combat power of nearly 200, Jack naturally did not dare to get close. Later the matter was left unresolved. By the way, Your Majesty, the King of the Galaxy, when you mentioned it, I remembered that the low-level planet at that time seemed to have developed an interstellar civilization, and those humans were already active in that area. Do you want me to investigate it again? Oh, has an interstellar civilization developed? Go check it out, but focus on the monitoring of several other major forces? Yes, I'll arrange it right away. Earth Magic Martial Arts Holy Land, Piccolo and others have rushed back through the interstellar teleportation array. Sun Tien came out of retreat, and everyone gathered together to discuss future development. Now the Magic Martial Arts Holy Land has enough strength to compete with other forces. Even if it encounters Frieza's army, as long as Frieza, the boss, does not come out personally, it may not be the opponent of the Magic Martial Arts Holy Land. Of course, the premise is that Piccolo comes out, otherwise facing Frieza's army, the Magic Martial Arts Holy Land is still much weaker. Kakarot, you've been in seclusion for 10 years, how are you doing now? Vegeta asked with a raging fighting spirit bursting out of him. Back then, when Vegeta first met Kakarot, he didn't even have the qualifications to challenge him. But now, with the huge martial arts background and training resources of the Magic Martial Arts Holy Land, after 10 years of training, his combat power is as high as 5 million. When he sees Sun Tian again, he naturally wants to challenge him. After 10 years, who is the #1 Saiyan? As expected of Vegeta, he wants to challenge Sun Tian as soon as he meets. Everyone looked as if it was true. Vegeta, do you want to fight me? But if you don't transform into a Super Saiyan, you should not be my opponent, Sun Tian said. Super Saiyan? That's just a legend. Now I have more than 5 million combat power, but I can't transform yet, Vegeta replied. Although the legend of Super Saiyan has always been circulated among Saiyans, Vegeta knows that although he has a combat power of 5 million now, he is not a Super Saiyan yet, otherwise this combat power alone would not be enough to make Frieza afraid. Legend? You can't become a Super Saiyan yet? Your current strength has already exceeded the conditions for transformation? Sun Tian asked curiously. When he saw Vegeta, Sun Tian checked Vegeta's situation with his spiritual sense. This strength had already broken the limit of Saiyans and reached the conditions for transformation. He thought Vegeta could already transform. Super Saiyan, the legendary super strong man who appears once every 1,000 years. Although this legend has been passed down among the Saiyans, it has never appeared until the destruction of planet Vegeta and the near extinction of the Saiyans. I thought it was just a legend, but now after listening to Kakarot's words, could it be that this self-deceiving legend is really not true? But I already have a combat power of 500 W, why haven't I transformed into a Super Saiyan? Kakarot, could it be that you can already transform? Thinking of this, Vegeta stared at Sun Tian with an incredulous look, hoping that the other party could give him an answer. No, but even if I can't transform, I'm not weaker than a Super Saiyan now, Sun Tian replied. Sun Tian really can't transform, and he won't deliberately pursue the transformation to Super Saiyan in the future, because Sun Tian himself has a better method. The existence of the ancient ape magic art can make Sun Tian continue to become stronger without transforming. You really can't transform? Sun Tian still had some doubts. Really not, and now I seem to have reached a bottleneck. I had reached 5 million combat power 2 years ago, but 2 years have passed and I have only increased less than 200,000 combat power? Vegeta's shameful look made Latiz Nappa and the other person beside him suddenly feel too ashamed. Look, it took 200,000 in 2 years to increase combat power. And then look at myself, it took 10 years to reach more than 200,000 combat power. Have you gone out to fight in recent years? Sun Tian suddenly thought of a question. In his previous life, Vegeta and others had been growing up in battle, but now, I am afraid that because of my own reasons, the androids have not appeared, so where is the battle? And Frieza, since his fake death, has not dared to show up because of his current strength. No, didn't you say before that Frieza's third transformation has a combat power of 120 million, so he basically lives on Earth? Vegeta was a little embarrassed when he said this. Sun Tian understood that life on Earth was stress-free. If it weren't for the sufficient resources of the magic martial arts Holy Land and the martial arts foundation of the Earth, it would probably be a problem for Vegeta to break through 10W. Moreover, with Vegeta's current strength, there is no one on Earth who can fight him. Being able to practice to this level is enough to show Vegeta's high talent. Oh, forget it, it's my fault. If it weren't for me, I'm afraid you wouldn't have retreated to Earth because of Frieza's combat power, Sun Tian said. He also knew that if he hadn't accidentally revealed Frieza's final combat power, I'm afraid that with Vegeta's personality, he would have come to the door with a combat power of more than 50W. This is not a bad thing. It is also because of the goal that Vegeta can cultivate to 500W combat power without transforming. And after 10 years of accumulation, the later burst may be even stronger. When Vegeta heard it, he was also a smart person and understood it immediately. He was still a little obsessed and didn't see through it. What are you going to do next? Go directly to Frieza for revenge? Vegeta asked. No rush, we are getting stronger, but Frieza will definitely not stand still. Let's investigate the situation first and then make a decision. Sun Tian also understood the current situation. Although Sun Tian is not afraid of facing Frieza now, since he has been hiding for 10 years, he is not afraid to wait a little longer. The magic martial Holy Land has developed very quickly. In 10 years, all the life planets near the Earth are basically under the control of the magic martial Holy Land. If it were not for the fear of expanding too fast and attracting the attention of other forces in the universe, it would be even more exaggerated. And with the success of interstellar teleportation, every planet under the control of the magic martial Holy Land is connected by an interstellar portal, which greatly facilitates the exchange of various information. There are space gates inside the planets and interstellar portals between planets, although they are not open to ordinary people. The high-level core of the magic martial Holy Land can quickly travel back and forth between the controlled planets. After 10 years of development with abundant resources, a lot of technology on Earth has also made great progress. The speed of the spacecraft has been further improved, and the safety performance has increased exponentially. In the center of the galaxy, the Galactic Patrol who was out investigating the Earth has returned. What did you say? All the planets in that area were unified by a force called the Holy Land of Magic and Martial Arts? The Galactic King asked. Yes, Your Majesty. I was ordered to investigate the science, but I was intercepted before I entered the Earth. If I hadn't found out that something was wrong and immediately tried to get out, I would have been left behind, the Galactic Patrol replied. What is the origin of this holy land of magic and martial arts? The combat power of the warriors guarding the planets is over 8,000. Is a new force rising? The Galactic King was distressed. Although there is no shortage of high-end combat power among the Galactic Patrol, these high-end combat forces are mostly used to protect the Galactic headquarters. The Galactic Patrol personnel who go out for investigation usually have a combat power of about 2,000. It's okay to track down small criminal gangs, but once they encounter more than 5,000, it's a bit not enough. According to my investigation, the owner of the Magic Martial Holy Land should be Namek. Although the combat power is not very clear, it is at least over 150,000. Your Majesty, should we send a senior patrol officer to negotiate? Namek, aren't they a peaceful race? Are they another slug? The King of Galaxy knew about the Namekians, who lived in the Vega constellation in the northern Milky Way. However, it was said that changes had occurred hundreds of years ago, and it was not known whether they still existed. Hundreds of years ago, Slug suddenly appeared. It was rumored that he was a Namekian with a super high combat power of 36 million. He was also extremely evil and called himself a demon. Demons? Demon Martial Arts Holy Land? Are there any connections between the two? Are they both Namekians? If that's the case, their combat power must not be 150,000, but at least over 1 million. I have to say that the King of the Galaxy is very experienced. He can actually calculate the strength of Lord Piccolo from some details. Unlike Latitznapa, Piccolo does not have limited talent. As a genius Namekian, even if he is split into two, Piccolo's combat power is still amazing. With a combat power of up to 185W, he can be said to be a supermaster in the universe. If he wasn't afraid of attracting the attention of Frieza and other superpowers, coupled with his habit of restraining his aura, his reputation would have spread throughout the universe long ago.